Hello, welcome to my Speedpaint. My name is Aiden. Today I'm drawing my version of Aphrodite for Valentine's Day. Hope you enjoy. Right now I'm sketching her out, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. With the hair, I wasn't sure at first about making it long, but in the end, I think it came out great. Currently, I'm adjusting the facial structure, and you might notice there's a little bit of lag here and there. I've been working on that and figuring out the best way to make my tablet work well with my recording software. My original recording software was OBS, but that was lagging my computer way too much, so I decided to switch to QuickTime Player, and that really cut down on the lag while maintaining the quality. You may notice some jumps in the camera and shifts in the way that the screen looks, so don't worry too much about that. That's just the way that's just me switching in between the programs before I ended up just using QuickTime Player. So we're finishing up the sketch of her. As you can notice, mostly cleaning things up. My traditional sketches are a lot messier than my digital sketches, but it doesn't really matter how messy or clean your sketch is, it just matters what works for you. I'm mostly sketching out the background. There's going to be a shell because the birth of Venus, obviously, and Venus and Aphrodite are the same goddess, just different. I guess different religions, I guess. They're basically the same thing. There's Roman mythology and Greek mythology. Aphrodite is Greek and Venus is Roman. Now we're getting onto the inking, and this has been by far my favorite piece in terms of the inking. I normally don't enjoy the inking process, but for this piece it was very relaxing. I add in a few lines here and there with the hair, and it just adds a little bit more depth. If you have trouble making wrinkles in the clothes or in the hair or what have you, just think about where it would naturally go. So like if something's bending on something, or if if the arm's bending, you would have the wrinkles going into that. And just look at clothes and see how they bend. I ended up drawing the entire hand on the sketch layer by accident, so always make sure that you're drawing on the right layers when you go in to do anything. You don't want to accidentally have to redraw the entire picture if you drew it on the wrong layer. I'm adding these little shade lines, I guess you could call them. They just give you a general idea of where the shading's supposed to be and have a nice kind of textured shady effect without getting into the shading quite yet. I had to resize a few things here and there, but overall I kept it mostly akin to sketch. Onto the coloring. This was a little bit of a struggle. I did, however, finally learn how to properly close the lines in the inking, kinda. I went in and used the fill foreground tool, and that makes things a lot easier. You can just paint right on there. But with the hair, I had the fill bucket settings off, and I was unsure why it wasn't filling in properly. Always check your settings before doing anything to make sure that you don't accidentally set things incorrectly. I colored the flowers magenta, cyan, and yellow, because cyan, yellow, magenta, the three primary colors. Yeah, I guess primary colors is the right word. Doing the lips and the little blushes are really fun. I don't wear makeup for obvious reasons, but I really like painting it, I guess. When I did the eyes, I lowered the opacity and I didn't realize it. Again, always check those settings, but I like how it looked in the end. It gives me color sampling a little bit hard. I want to go for a bit more of a, I don't know what you call this style, but it's not like, they don't look realistic. They're very high cartoon. Yeah, I like that, high cartoon. I really like the desaturated look. Once again, that was due to the opacity, and that's why I couldn't sample colors perfectly for this. So when I turned back the opacity to the way it was going to be, it became a lot more saturated. I was looking for the hue and saturation bar. Just look it up. It's really easy to find. But I just played around with the hue, saturation, vibrance, and a couple other of the features to get what I liked. Onto the shading, I got a light purple color and set the layer style to multiply. Not my typical overlay layer, but both work. I just prefer overlay more often, but this time I decided to multiply. I scrapped the original shade as I didn't really like how it looked. It was too dark for my taste, and so I just redid it and made it lighter. I blocked it in without doing any blending at first, and I would do the blending later on. You don't always have to blend, you can make them sharp, yeah, I guess you call it sharp. You can make it sharp or hard or however you want to call it, and it gives varied effects. In real life, not all the shadows aren't all hard or soft, so you just want to do a mixture of both if you want to do some more realistic shading. You can use the shade to build up various areas and make them look more three-dimensional. After the light shade, I went in with a darker shade and shaded the darker parts, or the parts that were in the back. Adding two different layers of shading gives it more dimensionality and allows you to make things pop out more. I added a pink and brown overlay layer to just add a little bit more of that effect. I went in with some highlights and roughly put them in areas that would have a little bit more of a highlighted glow. And I added the glow effect around the cyan, yellow, magenta flowers and played around with it until I decided I liked it. Adding a drop shadow makes things easier instead of having to draw in the actual shadow. With the background, I decided to make it a sky gradient, but I also wanted to add the sea. So of course, I put them on the same layer. As you can tell, I'm not very smart. I always blocked in I blocked in the shell and the clouds after redoing the water. I don't often do background elements like this, like water and clouds, but it's always good to practice and find new things that you might enjoy. I'm redoing the ocean right now, and I used some sponge and highlight color dodges to get a little bit more that watery feel. And I overall really like how the water turned out. I don't often do water effects like I already said, because I'm afraid I'll mess them up. You shouldn't be afraid to try out something new. That's the whole point of art, trying new things and seeing what you like. Finally, I'm shading the shell. I built up layers and added depth and dimension through that. I used a red overlay layer and a slightly lighter red later on. This allows you to kind of mark out where the kind of lines in the shell are without having to ink them in. And then I added a little bit of a highlight over that to kind of add a little bit more depth. I added a pink to brown gradient overlay to add some effect, and then I attempted some sparkles. I wasn't a really big fan of them, and I think I just need to experiment more. But overall, I enjoyed making this, and I really enjoyed the outcome of the piece. I hope you did too. Don't be afraid to try new things, and it's okay to cut back. Don't overdo everything. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye.